Okay, so I think we're all really confused here. What the fuck? Looking at the sequel trilogy as a whole, although it has great visual flair, the movies undeniably have problems. The biggest issues stem from the fact that the sequels lack a structurally sound story that is consistent throughout all three films. Perhaps if the sequels only featured original characters such as Rey, Finn, and Poe, they would have been harmless, forgettable films. Luke, Han, and Leia all return, which if they were done to the standard of diehard fans, it would have been a real treat. Instead, the filmmakers decided to do something risky with the old characters and bring them back in a way that no one expected. And let's just say, people weren't happy with the decisions.
I'm so sick of these people. You know, oh!
Han and Leia are characters who are relatively untouched, although there are some controversies about their characters too. It doesn't seem like their character arcs particularly outraged anyone to the point that it ruined the movies for them. Not to mention Carrie Fisher's passing undoubtedly came in the way of the original plan for her character. However, there is one character that fans have the most problems with, and that is my boy, Jar Jar Binks. Nah, I'm just kidding. I also want to mention, I made a video essay some time ago defending the sequel trilogy, which included Luke's arc, which I feel I could have done a better job going into depth about rather than simply summarizing the story. If you'd rather see a defense of the movies as a whole, the link is down below. Now, let's get started. I'd first like to openly acknowledge why audiences hate Luke's character in the sequels. And if I miss anything, feel free to call me out. The last time we see Luke, he is the perfect Jedi. He's fully capable of redeeming Darth Vader, one of the most ruthless Sith Lords in galactic history. And so afterward, he wants to rebuild the Jedi Order the right way. He seeks peace, and is the symbolic representation of hope. And then when we see him in the sequels, he's in exile and rejects any idea of helping anyone. Worst of all, this same man, who's known for seeing the best in people, ignites his saber in front of his nephew, whose mind is plagued by corrupt thoughts of Snoke. And pouring salt on the wound, we see glimpses of Luke outside of the sequel trilogy, specifically in Mandalorian Season 2, Book of Boba Fett, and Battlefront 2's campaign.
What else is there? A choice. The rebellion?
No. A choice to be better.
And these younger versions of Luke is the Luke Skywalker that everyone wanted in the sequel trilogy. So who is this guy pretending to be Luke Skywalker?
I will never train another generation of Jedi. I came to this island to die. It's time for the Jedi to end.
This is called character growth. Now, before you roll your eyes, just think about this for a moment. To assume that Luke was, has, and always will be the same person he once was is not growth. As evidenced in the Disney Plus shows, Luke's journey did not immediately fall after Return of the Jedi. Rather, it was a longer, gradual one. When talking about the topic of Luke Skywalker back in 2017, Gordon Levitt made a very true statement. Go talk to anyone in their 60s and ask if they feel very different than they did in their 20s. The look on their face will almost surely speak volumes. That being said, there is a solid 30-year time gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. I'm going to take examples from another movie, The Godfather, a movie that is universally hailed as the greatest film of all time. Michael Corleone is a boy whose family is a crime family. At the beginning of the story, you'd never believe him to be capable of being as ruthless as he later becomes. By the end of the film, through his experiences, his father's successor in every conceivable way. This doesn't happen over the course of a few days or a few months, but years. Now let's look at a character who you may all be slightly more universally familiar with, Thor. Instead of talking about his character growth over the course of each movie, let's create a more dramatic example. The film ends with Thor having learned his lesson of humility, and he's a changed man who's already had his development. Now let's pretend like we suddenly go from the ending of Thor 1 straight into Avengers Endgame. A little over a decade later, suddenly the next time you see him, he's fat, drunk, no longer cares about saving the world, and only gets lured back if there's free beer. This is a Thor who's made mistakes and is now coping in his own way. Is this the same Thor you saw at the end of Thor 1, or was there a period of time that passed in which a series of difficult decisions are made that slowly changed him? The point that I'm making about Michael Corleone and Thor is that they're both characters who, over the course of many years, have drastically changed to a point where they're almost unrecognizable to their former selves. No, I'm not directly comparing Luke Skywalker to Thor or Michael. They are completely different characters. This is simply showing that Luke is no less of an example of a character growing and changing over the years through his experiences. While it would have benefited audiences to know what tragedies Luke has experienced in those 25 years, the sequel trilogy was ultimately focused on promoting the newest generation of characters. That being said, we know what the main turning point in Luke's life was. Ultimately, it was his very regretful decision in thinking that for a brief moment, he has the opportunity to stop this.
He would bring destruction and pain and death and the end of everything I love because of what he will become. And for the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it.
But forget what happened seconds later. Focus on this moment. Luke had a thought of killing his nephew, but would he have actually done it? Had Ben never woken up, would he have taken the strike? The answer is no. People routinely forget that in Return of the Jedi, despite Luke believing there was good in his father, he had a moment where he was tempted to behead his father. The key word here is hesitancy. Even when being goaded by the most evil person in the galaxy, Luke had thoughts of killing him, but he refused. The confusion here is that fans assume that after making the decision not to kill his father, he is completely impassible to any possibility of ever being tempted again. Dark Empire. So cutting back to the moment where he was standing over top of Ben, he's there in his moment of hesitancy, sensing a power he hasn't felt in over 25 years. But no, he's not going to do it. He's going to put the saber down and refuse to give in. But this time, he doesn't make the decision quick enough. Ben thinks Luke is there to kill him, and the events proceed from there. So this begs the question, what about the rest of the movie? Why did Luke cut himself off from the Force and refuse to help his sister when they were in peril? Clearly, he knows the consequences of going up against impossible odds. As he says in the film,
I think what? I'm gonna walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order?
this is also the equivalent of going back to the Empire era and watching thousands of innocent lives being taken and wondering, why didn't Yoda come out of hiding and rescue any of the innocent people being slaughtered? Like, what is he supposed to do? Jedi go into exile when they've made a grand mistake and need self-reflection. In Luke's case, it was growing to realize the flaws of the Jedi and that they need to end. The other argument is that Luke has always been and always should be the embodiment of hope. Yet at the beginning of The Last Jedi, he is the complete opposite.
My character always represented hope and optimism, and now here I am, very pessimistic and disillusioned and sort of demoralized.
That's the point of his arc. He has fallen so far down in his path that he's lost sight of who he is and who he is supposed to be.
Failure also. Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher, failure is.
Rey reignites the spark in his mind, and at the end of the movie, he returns to the world and gave the world the one thing they need to win. He became the embodiment of hope and gave the resistance hope. Say what you will about the sequel trilogy as a whole, but Luke's story arc is a rich and powerful one. When writing the sequels, the filmmakers were aware that bringing back someone as iconic as Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that they needed to do something unique and innovative rather than playing it safe. While the option to keep Luke exactly the way he was always there, they approached his character in a fresh way by making him grow over the years, while still ending his journey by becoming the symbol of hope that everyone knew him to be. This is Luke Skywalker.